We're back. We're live. Leave. Hello. We're back. Recess is over. We are in the middle of concluding arguments. They're on a sidebar real quick. I'm going to change my banner here. Closing arguments. Defense. I don't know if I already missed the other closing arguments. I can't remember which one goes first, but how's everybody doing? Get that timer on there. Closing. It's not recess anymore. I think, I haven't heard evidence where she's not a reliable witness, where he's kind of trying to spread an area.
Why would you have a vial unless you're trying to load it? Oh. He has a syringe in his hand. The other hand, he's holding her mouth. He's down on top of her, doing all of this while she's supposedly kicking and fighting. He only has two arms. And in the middle of it, they're having a full conversation.
I think it happened.
Your mom's not going to be very happy if you do this. The kids aren't going to be, her story makes no sense. Now, logic, reason, and common sense as we look at her story.
Okay.
And it is a story.
Prove that it doesn't make sense.
Look at her story.
You can't just say it doesn't make sense. It makes sense.
Why, if this was a big plan that someone's going to bring a syringe to incapacitate somebody and stab them to make it easier to throw them off the cliff, don't you think they would load the syringe ahead of time? Don't you think they would load that syringe ahead of time? Their story is that he's that's the plan, and in the middle of it, he's like, oh wait, I gotta take out this vial and get it ready. That makes no sense, especially given the fact that it's undisputed he had just gone up the mountain by himself for 10 minutes. If he had it and wanted to use it, he could have loaded it. It makes no sense because it didn't happen. It didn't happen. The other thing, and I'm glad he brought up this thing about plan A, plan B, plan C, because it proves the point I was going to get to. Why in the world, if you bring a syringe to incapacitate someone to make it easier to throw them off the cliff, why would the syringe be plan B? It would be plan A. You would use the syringe first, and then you would throw them off.
But that means he might have had multiple plans.
Start this scuffle and they'd be like, oh wait, now I'm going to stab her with the syringe. That makes no sense. It makes no sense that, that's the plan. He knows if something like that happened, he's a doctor, a toxicology report would show propofol in her thing, in her blood, that this is.
We don't know if that's the drug that was in there. If there was a syringe, we don't know what drug there was in there. We have no idea. We never will know because it probably got thrown off the cliff if it was real. And I think that you could tell, in my opinion and others' opinions, you could tell he wasn't lying about the fact that when he came back down, when she refused to go up higher with him, that he was surprised that she was still there. My surmising from the evidence and my experience as a professional and a person is that I think his original plan was thwarted of potentially pushing her off the cliff at the top. He thought he missed his opportunity. And then when she was still there, he improvised. That's my assessment of the situation.
It makes no sense that he would start the scuffle before using a syringe if that was his big plan, because it didn't happen. This idea that she could just flick the syringe out of his hand, he's holding it tight, according to her.
I don't think
none of that makes
I don't
any
think
sense.
anybody's disproved the fact.
This idea about he hid evidence. The rock is found right there. We don't know exactly where because HPD should have photographed it before they moved it. But why would he get rid of the syringes and leave the rock? None of that makes any sense. And then, of course, we get into him leaving her on the mountain. Leaving her on the mountain. If this is a big plan to use this hike as an opportunity to throw her off and kill her, why would he walk away and leave her there alone, thinking
because he got interrupted?
And they're trying to say, well, all kinds of things about that. But the reality is this: if you think, even though it's not true, if he went off on his own, because if she said, well, it's too high, I'm getting a little scared.
Yeah.
And his plan was to kill her.
Yeah.
He wouldn't leave her. He would say, okay, you know what? That's fine. But let's just send this over here and
I don't buy it.
And then try to throw her off. Right. He wouldn't have left her for that reason.
No, he was mad.
If he was planning to try and throw her, he would have stayed with her.
Had a little fit.
And then her rationale, it went, to get around the idea that undisputable that she clearly said when he got back, she told the detective that he said, oh, you're still here. He was surprised that
Mhm.
she was still there.
Yeah, because he thought he
She
missed his
says, well,
chance.
he knew I meant I was going to go exploring in that area. Where was there to explore? We heard from witness after witness. It was you either go up or you go down. You don't go off and go exploring. That was her way to try and cover up. That it was clear he left there thinking she was going back to the car, which you wouldn't do if you had a plan to kill somebody by throwing him off the cliff.
Okay.
TSA, we've all been through it. Sharp metal syringe objects, sharp objects, not going to work. Not going to work. Logic, reason, common sense that he has this intent to kill her, but then he lets her crawl away. He lets her he lets her go down to the witnesses. Doesn't come after.
Because he was caught.
Doesn't make any
He
sense.
was interrupted.
Her demeanor.
He's not stupid. He's a
They
doctor.
say,
He's not.
oh, she was very matter of fact.
In front of other people.
Ask yourself.
That's a very weak.
If someone's describing what should have been the most horrific thing they've ever been through, bloody murder, someone's trying to stab you with a syringe, a monster's trying to throw you off a cliff. When you're recounting that, you might get a little emotional. Not at all. And she's not just someone who doesn't get emotional, because we saw her get emotional when we showed her the card. When she read the birthday card, she got emotional.
Oh, yeah.
I submit to you that was probably guilt. But whatever it was, she knew it was genuine, and she showed an ability to show emotions. That was real. The card was real. You cannot get emotional over a made-up story that didn't happen when you started the fight. Reasonable doubt, logic, reason, and common sense. Now, Ariel's story contradicts the physical evidence. It just does. And this is a huge problem for them. And they try to come up at the last minute with, well, maybe when blocking it, her DNA got on it. But let's talk about that. Because we're talking more than probably, right? You know, he wants to say maybe blocking her DNA got on it. Maybe. Okay. But let's use our logic, reason, and common sense and look at the physical evidence. What does Scott Henderson say? The DNA got it. Generally, yeah, you could expect higher likelihood ratios with the more DNA that's present in a sample. The more DNA present in a sample, you can expect a higher ratio, yes? Generally speaking, yes. The more someone's DNA is on the sample, the higher the number. Higher the number. He then goes on, we learn from him and Amarin, that, very important, the rock. Swabbing from the unstained area. There was a stained area that looked like blood, and there was the unstained other side. They swabbed the blood. They tested. Of course, it's Ariel's blood. I told you that in opening statement, right? The blood side was Ariel. The unstained side, they don't test for blood. They test for human skin cell touch DNA from people holding objects, they told you. Okay? The unstained side had a profile for two people, Ariel and Gerhard. Ariel's number was 1 trillion. His was 290. Let's go back to what Henderson said.
Yeah, because, well, if he was doing
the more
it, then
DNA present on the sample, you can expect a higher ratio. Yes.
Killing her with the rock.
1 trillion to 290.
I mean, okay.
The rock was in her hand.
Show me facts.
The rock was in her hand. The DNA shows that.
He didn't have any wounds on his face.
That she didn't have the rock.
How?
The rock was in her
What, did she
hand.
bash herself in the head with the rock?
Her DNA's all over that. This idea, well, maybe when she was blocking it hit her, that's not going to lead to that much of her DNA on it, more than him.
Objection, speculation.
If he's holding the rock the whole time and she's just blocking, there's going to be more of his DNA than hers. She was holding the rock, and that blows away their entire theory.
No.
Scientifically, I asked Amarin, what about scientific evidence, Miss Amarin? And we talked about it. It's unmotivated. Scientific evidence is not trying to get full custody. His retirement. It doesn't lie. It is what it is. And they may say, well, maybe it was there because of this. Again, maybe, maybe not. A huge reasonable doubt. A huge reasonable doubt. She had the rock in her hand.
Okay, I'm sorry. He told his son that he just tried to kill his stepmother. That's pretty concrete.
1 trillion to 290. Now,
And then
the
you
other thing
called
about the
back
physical
and said,
evidence
"Did you
is
tell
the
anybody?"
injuries. They want to say, we heard about the stellate laceration. I'm going to talk more about it later. But it has one point and it spreads, right? And you heard, she at the end said she doesn't know how many times she was hit. The doctor, Grosjean, said 2, maybe 2. I cannot say how much more. Dr. Arden says 2 to 3. Okay. If she was hit 7, 8, 9 times with all his might, it would be way worse. Physical evidence doesn't support her.
Are you a
version of
doctor, not a
events.
lawyer? Are you a
Also,
doctor?
if she's under attack, she's
I
going to be
just feel like his
scratching,
arguments
doing
aren't
biting, as
detailed
she
enough.
says.
He's
He
just
has no
basically
scratch
saying,
marks,
"Oh, that's crap.
defensive
That's
wounds.
crap." But
There's no bite mark
how are you
on
proving
him,
that
even though
it's
she
crappy
said she bit him.
dude? You're not
The
giving
physical
enough
evidence doesn't
actual
support
evidence
her
other than your
story.
tone of voice.
And that's a huge problem when it's this she said, he said,
Good
and
luck.
this is your burden.
Yeah,
That's a huge problem.
it's not concrete like
Further problematic
evidence.
is the examples of deceptive behavior that we saw through her. Many examples of deceptive behavior that makes her unreliable. We heard about her deleting the text messages to hide it from her husband, to hide the extent of her relationship. That is inherently deceptive.
I can see why.
It shows that that's inherently deceptive.
Regardless of if he did it,
Now,
and I can see why.
The affair.
This is how he was
affair.
going to react. I can
Look,
see why.
I'm not the morality police, okay? I'm not here saying she's an awful person because she had an affair. That's for you to decide, okay?
Ooh.
The relevance.
Improper.
Okay, dude.
Sustain.
Are you sure about
And
that?
with distract. Granted, last argument on morality is stricken from the record.
The relevance of the affair is primarily that she lied about it to the detective. The context is showed in the relationship in January, February, and December, but the relevance is she lied about it to the detective. And that is incredibly important when it is she said, he said, and it's proof beyond a reasonable doubt.
I'm going to go back and fact check that because as far as I know from the evidence I've seen so far is that he expanded this affair in his mind as to more than it actually was. So did she lie or did she just try and tell him and he
Let's
blew
look
it
at this.
into bigger
This
than
is,
it was?
this is, you know,
Which,
he said, well,
Well,
she
okay.
describes it to the detective as just some flirty text messages.
Yeah.
He says, well, there's nothing in the text messages about sex. Well, she deleted most of them. So we don't really know what's in there.
Sure.
But we do know what we saw. On the trip, the day before he's going to confront her, this is at 11:22 p.m., presumably Hawaii time, or maybe it's California time, whatever, but it's late at night. She's sending this to Jeff Miller.
Mhm.
Jeff Miller is sending her this. They have a nickname for Gerhard, HALEU, which is that radiology, nuclear, whatever. They call I have HALEU. They have a code word to let each other know when he's around.
Oh,
She's listening to an audiobook, How to Help My Spouse Heal from My Affair. That's what she's listening to.
mm-hmm. Good.
He says to her, you're engaged and continue an elaborate secret affair instead of coming to me asking to work on our relationship. And her response is, if anything, I learned how stupid it was this time and I know how to make sure it doesn't happen again. That's her response. Okay? Now, to the detective, no affair, just some flirty text messages. To you guys, no affair, just some flirty text messages. You saw 12/1, December 1st, all day long on a Sunday. Good morning, all day long, good night. And that's how she says it to the detective. She was misrepresenting, deceptive, lying to the detective. Further examples of deceptive behavior is what she does with her primary care doctor and the records. After the fact, she tells her primary care doctor in an email to can you add traumatic brain injury?
Mm-hmm.
I want to make sure the documentation is consistent between my care at Queens back here and Mount. And that's the important part. Why is that important? Because, number one, she says she doesn't recall reviewing the Queens records. The Queens records doesn't mention traumatic brain injury. Arden told you that, the two don't you think if traumatic brain injury was in her Queens records, they would have asked Grosjean or Carlton Whitney that?
Doctors don't always put, like, sometimes you have to specifically ask them to put stuff in there for insurance purposes, all sorts of purposes.
It wasn't in there. So this shows she is Not just asking the primary care doctor to do this, she's deceiving the primary care doctor into believing that the Queen's record said traumatic brain injury. So the PCP will be like, oh, okay, I'll add it. It's deceptive behavior.
Maybe her lawyer told her.
It's incredibly misleading. Now,
Okay. Interesting.
she says she's surprised about the work bag. She's surprised about the work bag. Oh, I didn't know. She knew he had it there. She knew there was syringes and vials in there. She calls her attorney. And then they turn it in and say, oh, surprise, look what I found. She knew it was there. She knew it was there. She lied about that. She lied about her affair. She lied to her primary care doctor.
She didn't lie to a primary care doctor. She asked
there
him to
is
put something on her
I
file.
really like quotes. So there's an author, famous author, by the name of
say
Samuel
yes or no.
Clemens. Most of us know him better as Mark Twain. Mark Twain was giving a speech once to some young people about the dangers of being untruthful.
Oh my God.
And what he said was, you ought to be very careful about lying. Because once caught, you can never again be, in the eyes of the good and the pure, what you were before.
Objection to improper argument.
Huh. Very morality
guys come in
police
here,
theme here.
You give people
Very
the benefit of
morality
the doubt.
police.
They come in here, you say, I'll hear them all.
I mean,
And then they lie about different.
your guy literally was stalking and detailing her and disrespecting her to other people in her life before she even knew anything was going on, and buying spy devices after they were trying to work on their marriage. There's lots of deception both ways. I'm sorry.
Things they deceive. In the eyes of the good and pure of all of you, you can't look at her the same again. It's dangerous. It's dangerous. If she's going to manipulate her PCP doctor, if she's going to be deceptive to the detective, do you think for a second she would hesitate to be that way with you?
Why would she want to send him?
And then we get into bias interest motive. We talked about this. We talked about this.
Unless
How she knew a
did
divorce was
something
coming.
to her.
She wanted full
Sorry.
custody. How they're using these allegations against him to get full custody, to make it where he can't ever see his kids again, to get half his retirement, to get all of the house, things that she might not get.
Okay, I'm sorry, but like the way he treated his son is despicable. So maybe he shouldn't have to see his son again.
She knows that. She said to you that their statement is, we want full custody, but if depending on the outcome of the case, that can be revisited later. She knows the ramifications. Now, let's compare that to Mr. Gerhard, Dr. Gerhard Koenig. You got to see him. Trust your gut. Trust what you know about people. Is he somebody that is a monster that came up with this plan to stab his wife and throw her off a cliff? Is that the sense you got from him? Or was he a hurt human being struggling with infidelity but trying his best? You know, they talked about his parents, how they moved from South Africa when he was young. He worked really hard to become a doctor. He talks about, oh, she was trying to control everything about her. All of this awful controlling guy. What does she say? Prior to December, you generally describe your marriage as good, right? Yes, sir. This is what Ariel said. You don't describe your marriage as good if somebody is a controlling, coercive, violent person. There's a lot embedded in this. You don't describe it as a good marriage if unless they're a good dad. Look, domestic violence is horrible. There's some awful men out there that use their power, control, financial means to control women in improper ways. This is not it. That's not it. She wouldn't say it was a good marriage if he was like that. His version of events, they fault him for wanting to see her phone and things like that. The audiobook said that's what it takes. This is audio. I asked you earlier, you understood the audiobooks you're listening to by these professionals says to give up privacy, give up access, get them to trust again. She says, yes. They're faulting him for the professional advice, what is said. He's not trying to deprive her of her career. He's trying to stop her from seeing the guy that she had an affair with. He was fine with her getting another job. That's a very human thing. Why would you be okay with her going back to work with the guy that she had an affair with? Now, he went into detective mode when he found out about the affair. That's a very human reaction. You know, very human. He was on the computer looking up Reddit and infidelity and getting some advice. It's not easy when your partner cheats on you. He's struggling with it. They're making some progress in January and February because counseling, she turns it about, not about the affair, but about other issues. But they're making progress. They're kind of heading in a good direction. They go on this hike. And it makes sense that at that hike, she brings up this issue of, again, not that I want to be with Miller, but hey, I got to travel for work. Okay, I got to travel for work. And this is a detail that you just can't make up, right? He says, then when they're fighting about it, she said, well, my mom can come with me to chaperone. He leaves her because they got into a fight, not because she's afraid of heights. She goes on all kinds of bungee jumping hikes all the time. He comes back and he's like, oh, you're still there. He described to you what happened. He's not saying, oh, he grabbed me and pulled me down. The scuffle started on this mountain trail and they ended up on the ground. Whether they tripped or fell, whatever, he ended up on her. And then he told you how she's grabbing his testicles. And she admits to it. And then I also squeezed his testicles. That's her testimony. It was all happening so fast. You know, we spent a lot of time going through it all. That's not real life. In real life, you don't get hours to be like, okay, and then you did what? Well, why didn't you do this? Well, did you consider that? Did you consider doing this with the rock instead? It was happening in seconds, and he reacted. And he had a reflex. And that's human. That's human. That's human. He reacted. And then he felt horrible about it. And he told you about that. He never wanted to hurt her. Never. He felt terrible about it. He was shocked that he could even do that to her in that moment. He felt horrible. The physical evidence supports
I don't know about
story.
that. I don't see
The
that.
DNA, and I'm going to get into the medical
Why
evidence a
run
little more
to
in
the
a second.
police? Why call your son and confess? Why do all those things?
You have this, which apparently might have been dirt. Undeterred, might have been dirt. You have a cut, you have bruising. Right where he said he was hit. Reasonable doubt. Now,
Pulled out. If he
the
got
FaceTime
hit,
with Emil that
he
they
was
call
defending for her
confession.
life, and he got hit.
There's
That's
no assurances of reliability. He explained to you what happened in that call.
not fine.
We need to consider it in the context in which it took place and ask ourselves, is this a reliable, thing that happened that we can rely on? Two highly emotional participants in the phone call. One is suicidal. One is thinking his life is over. He's very emotional, calling his son to say goodbye. The other, obviously, not blaming Emil at all, incredibly emotional. His grandma said she was shaking, crying. Two very, very emotional people. Then you look at the environmental factors. He's on the side of a cliff. And they made it a point to get the HPD officer to say, it's very windy over there, notoriously windy. Very, very windy day, according to the police. He's on speakerphone on the side of a cliff talking. And he told you what he did. He was explaining to her, look, she was having this affair. She got hurt. This is her blood. She crawled away or got away. She crawled away. And she said, I tried to kill her. He was telling her that's why he was going to end his life.
Mm-hmm.
He wasn't confessing. He was telling her that's why I'm going to end his life. Now, we know this is his testimony. So as you sit here today, there's parts of the exact wording and timing of what was said that you don't quite remember exactly verbatim, word for word, correct? He said yes. He cannot tell us exactly word for word what was said.
No, he did say.
And then we have an example of
Did
him
say
making
that
assumptions.
he said, "I tried to
He
kill."
first tells the detective,
I
my
tried
dad
to
said he
kill
tried to
her,
push her off the cliff.
and then why would
That's what
he
he
call
assumed.
back an hour later and say, "You didn't tell anybody, did you?"
In an interview, the detective asked you about that, and you clarified. You said, the part about her pushing her off the cliff was what you assumed he meant, not what he actually said, correct? He said, oh, yes, correct. So we have an example already of him saying something that he assumed that wasn't accurate.
Well, he didn't say how he tried to kill her, but he did say those words to Emil. I mean,
He wants to say, it was so clear at the end of his redirect. He
poor
said,
guy,
without a doubt, I know what was
poor
said.
kid.
Do you recall how he had to try 4 times? The first 3, Emil said, yeah, I was confused. I'm kind of confused. And he was again, yeah, I'm kind of confused. I'm kind of
No,
confused. And
he didn't.
finally, Emil understood what the prosecutor wanted him to say and agreed.
No, I didn't see. That's not what I.
I'm not faulting Emil at all.
I'm going to go back.
This
to
was a
that.
misunderstanding. The second call shows that. Gerhard calls the second time, and he wasn't saying, why'd you rat me out? He was saying, wait, what? You told
Are you sure?
Ariel's parents I tried to kill her? Oh, like, I gotta go. And he was gonna go kill himself again. This idea that he wasn't giving Ariel a blow-by-blow Emil a blow-by-blow what happened. He was trying to say goodbye to his son. This is not a confession they're making out to be. I just point out to you, it's not his fault. He's lived with Ariel the last year. He wants to be on Maui. He likes it here. He knows the only way he can stay here is living with her. We talked about her and her actions with the detective and the primary care doctor.
Stop talking about the son, please.
He understood what the prosecutor wanted him to say after the 4th try.
Okay, that's attacking Emil's character.
This is not a confession.
Step off, dude.
Gerhard's actions after the incident, they want to say it's consciousness of guilt. I say it's conscious. It's proof he's human. He went into deep despair.
No, because
he couldn't believe that he could cause that kind of harm to the person that he loved.
Why not
and
come
that
down?
Could coexist
Why
with
not come
defending
down
himself
then?
in the moment
And explain.
in that reaction.
And go to the hospital.
He felt horrible about it.
He's a doctor.
He went into
things like that happen all the time.
Where he was suicidal.
Explain. Just explain.
What he was saying to Emil on the phone was, I gotta go. I don't want the police to find me. Is because he wanted to keep open the option of killing himself, which was turning to be harder than he thought. He didn't want to get caught at that time because he was still thinking about jumping and killing himself. He wasn't evading the police for a purpose of, I don't want to get caught. He wanted to be able to kill himself and have that option. And we'll talk about when he turned himself in later.
Okay. If you didn't try to kill your wife, why do you want to kill her?
And that's why he did what he did with the SIM card.
That's what I don't understand.
He didn't want the police to find him
any sense.
killing himself. And this idea that in the middle of this suicidal place of being super emotional, that you open your SIM card, you bend a paperclip, open it, and you're going to take the time to put it back where it was instead of just leave it over there. It shows he's human, that he felt terrible about this. He told you how bad he felt. And that can coexist with self-defense. Now, this idea that he was fleeing from the cops, first of all, the officer didn't say we pulled up right next to him. Very clearly, they said we pulled up. There was a lane in between us, and he was on the grassy area.
Yeah,
this grassy area right here. They said he was here when they got out of the car, and he started to flee. And remember, and I said, "Come on, how the heck was he not going to get in the bushes if that were the case?" And then, shockingly, the prosecutor asks him, "Well, you played D1 football, right, officer?" I mean, the fastest man in the world, Usain Bolt, Olympic sprinter from Jamaica, could not get to him from the car if he's trying to get into the bushes. Look, I get it.
Barely any injuries on his body or his face.
They're the strategic enforcement detail. Apparently, you got to be 300 pounds to be in it. I get it. They think he has a syringe. Okay, they come in hot. They couple strikes. Don't hit him in the face.
They're going to come in hot. There's 2 witnesses.
I'm not faulting them for that. I don't know about
There's
this.
2 witnesses and blood.
Saying he was trying to flee.
Face.
Okay, that's not.
I mean,
okay,
come on.
But I get it. Officer safety. He has an injury. Look at this. It's dried blood and it's bruising. It's the kind of purple bruising that takes place hours later. When you first get an
Did that
injury,
happen
it
when you
doesn't
got
bruise.
jumped by the cops? Though?
This happened earlier.
That was after.
Dried blood, purple bruising. That takes time to get to that point. A theory in search of facts. I talked to you guys about this. To try and use a computer to manufacture financial motive
Putting up some of my questions on the screen.
without telling us last week
Feel free to answer them.
that sometimes, I'm sorry, how much time is that? Thank you. That sometimes the computer opens files and shows it was accessed. Don't you think that would have been fair to tell you guys that? Instead of leading you to believe that 100% Gerhard looked at all of these things? Look, make no mistake, he said 80% of it he looked at. He's not hiding now. He's just, when he's up here saying, like, I don't remember at 3 a.m. looking at a 2018 Amex credit card statement that was in my old divorce file. And, but undeterred. It shows he had a financial motive. He was looking up how much his divorce costed him in the past. What? He makes a lot of money as a doctor. The search terms: kill, push, shove, syringe. They're looking for the smoking gun. They have had it with his computer, looking for the smoking gun. What do they find? No smoking gun. Just some search about hikes that you would search if you were truly just going on a hike. Again, maybe, maybe not. They're looking for a smoking gun. They don't find it. So what do? They manufacture a motive, undeterred, theory in search of facts. Oh, no smoking gun. But you know what? It shows he's looking at financial documents. He has a financial motive. It's not fair. And she knew he would take it from work every day. Now, self-defense, first thing you got to decide is whether or not this was deadly force that he used. We know it wasn't. We're going to get into that in a second. But it doesn't matter either way because it's the same rock that she hit him with. So even if it was, even if you say it was deadly force, it was the force that was used against him. So it doesn't matter. It's the same rock. The only thing it does say about it, and this is the part that was incomplete, about the duty to retreat. It says, the use of deadly force is not justifiable if the defendant knows he can avoid the necessity of using such force with complete safety by retreating. You only have to retreat if you can do so safely. She's holding on to his testicles, hitting. And it just talks about being reasonable. He used the same force that she used against him. And they want to say, well, look at the difference. How could it be the same rock? Obviously, if one gets hit cleaner than the other, the same rock can do that. You know, like I could throw something at a baseball at someone's head, and one it hits them in the face, and one it hits him in the arm. It's going to cause obviously it can be depending on how the direction, how hard the landing was.
Yep.
He stopped. He didn't keep going. What amount of force was used?
But
we know.
stop,
Like I said earlier, we know what
them.
so Ariel says she doesn't know. I don't know the exact number. They are downplaying what she said because they know it doesn't make sense. They're saying, oh, up to 10 times. So what does that mean? 6, 7, 8, 9? Doesn't mean 2. But now they know that doesn't make sense. She was hit 8, 9 times. So, oh, maybe she meant less. She doesn't know. Grosjean says possibly 2, maybe more. I cannot tell you. Arden says 2 to 3. He says 2. Grosjean talks about, oh, there's rock in there or dirt. He's not a forensic pathologist. He didn't test the material. Just to show like what it was. You know, her condition after. You saw her walking. She's walking on the hill. Okay. But more importantly, this is her talking after.
She couldn't.
And I'm going to ask you to do something with me now.
She crawled.
If you could help me out here. Either close your eyes or don't look at the screen and just listen to her voice.
Oh my gosh. Okay. After? God.
Where does he work? He works for TMG at Maui Memorial Medical Center. TMG is called it.
It's Memorial.
Memorial, yeah. So TMG is a group of anesthesiologists.
Did you guys drive here today?
Yeah.
Which is your car?
It's a Nissan Rogue.
Do you remember the license plate? It's not that's okay.
It's not our car. We live on Maui.
What color is it? The Nissan.
It's like black or it's gray. It's gray. Let me just wet my mouth. Go wet paper towel. Clean my mouth so it really works. I don't have any other. Sorry, I know. No,
Injuries.
you're an angel. Trying to stop the bleeding until they get angry.
What was Jeff wearing today?
Wearing like a light gray shirt and
Okay. Does she sound like she has a traumatic brain injury too? She sounds okay.
Are you kidding me, dude?
Look, I'm not saying it wasn't a bad cut.
She sounds
And look,
okay. Are you,
you know,
fucking?
nobody wanted her to have that cut. I'm not saying it's not, I'm just saying the
You know
level
the
of
body
force
goes
he
into
used,
shock
you
after
can
you get
see.
injured, right?
It was, he talks about chunks missing from his scalp. No doctor said that.
Oh,
It was
Lord.
soft tissue. You heard from Dr. Arnett, a very credible man, that apparently for 14 grand is going to sacrifice his integrity. Obviously, he's not going to do that. He told you the blood is not a good indication of the severity.
Right.
The blood is not a good
For
indication of
sure.
severity.
Yeah.
No skull
Blood can
fractures, no
flow
soft
and-
tissue. The tip of her thumb, he
Yeah.
said it was just a very tip. And sure, after the first hit, he puts her thumb, it hits it, just the tip is fractured. We heard about that. All three doctors agree. No substantial risk of death and no serious bodily under the law. All three said that. We talked about the stellate laceration. The Glasgow coma score was 15 out of 15. Triage, they waited a few hours outside because she wasn't in that serious of a condition. She had a bad laceration. They sewed it up. She went home the next day. And I don't mean to.
It's tough for him to know how to
He
talk
feels
about
terrible
this
that that
appropriately.
happened.
I'm telling you.
But
I
he wasn't
confirm
trying to kill her.
in that way.
That's about the amount of force that was used. Now, her eye. Let's look at this photo. The orbital is the most fragile area there is.
Yeah.
And he said, very fragile bone. If he hit her with that rock,
Ouch.
it would have broke bones. There was a scuffle. They landed on the ground. They're fighting. There's elbows. He's going for the rock. They're fighting for it. There's no doubt her eye got hurt in this thing. But he didn't smash her eye with the rock the way they want you to believe.
Yep. I don't know. I'm gonna have to go back and watch the prosecution.
And then you have his injuries.
Awesome.
We talked about that. Now, it's the state's burden to prove to you this was in self-defense.
Yep.
More than probably. That it wasn't under the circumstances, that he reacted as a human when she was doing these things to him and hit him. They have to prove to you it doesn't apply. It was a reflex. It was a reaction.
If he gets off on this,
human reflex
it's
and
gonna be
reaction
extremely disturbing.
to defend
So I
himself
think
in the
there's
moment.
more than enough evidence, but
And that can coexist with him feeling terrible about it after. These
Oh,
other
sorry.
included offenses.
Sorry.
None of them apply.
skipped ahead there. I mean,
Self-defense is a defense to all of them. If you think that they didn't disprove self-defense, it goes all the way down. But you work your way down through these things. I'm just gonna go through it quickly because I don't have a lot of time.
I'm just gonna put up.
The next one is
polls to
attempted
see what
assault
you
in the
guys
first
think,
degree.
How long it's gonna take for the jury to deliberate?
That he took a substantial step in conduct intended to culminate in the commission of assault in the first degree. That he intentionally or knowingly was trying to cause serious bodily injury. Let's look at the definition of serious bodily injury. Serious bodily injury means bodily injury which creates a substantial risk of death or which causes serious permanent disfigurement or protracted loss or impairment of the function of any bodily member or organ. The doctors say she didn't have that. He wasn't trying to do that. This doesn't apply. Self-defense, no intent to cause serious bodily injury. You go on to assault in the second degree. Again, serious, no intent to cause
I don't
serious bodily
know.
injury.
Why did he say that to his
Self-defense
son?
applies to all of this. So you work your way through, self-defense applies to all of it. Her motive to try and get custody And conviction of any of these things helps her.
Oh gosh, my nose
Very
broke.
good.
Assault in the third degree.
Sorry.
For improper instruction of the law.
So should be substantial.
Oh, what happened there? What did you say?
Then you get to assault in the third degree, bodily injury, or negligent use of a dangerous instrument. Reasonable doubt as to all of these. Now, I'm almost at the end here. I have couple more minutes. I want to end by saying a few things. This is the law. I ask you to use this as a guide to your deliberations. It's not about trying to figure out what happened. Your only goal is to answer the question, is there a reasonable doubt? Did they prove beyond a reasonable doubt this was not self-defense? More than possibly, more than probably. Let that guide your deliberations. It's a way to simplify things. After you talk about any piece of evidence, come back and remind each other, yeah, but does that prove this beyond a reasonable doubt? Let that guide your deliberations. You know, I couldn't help but think last night. When they moved here to the United States, there's these constitutional rights that we all have. They didn't know it at the time, but it was for a moment just like this. When a jury of his peers would come together and follow the law and follow through on the oath that you took. I want to end with a quote. There was a politician back in the day who was giving a speech, and it was to other politicians, but I think it applies pretty well to jury service. It says, "For those to whom much is given, much is required." And when at some future date, the High Court of History sits in judgment on each of us, recording whether in our brief span of service, we fulfilled our responsibilities to the state, our success or failure will be judged by the answer to 4 questions. First, were we truly men and women of courage? Second, were we truly men and women of judgment? Third, were we truly men and women of integrity? And finally, were we truly men and women of dedication? I ask you to keep those 4 things in mind as you deliberate. Courage to follow the law and do what's right, even if it may not be popular. Judgment to see through some of these ideas that he had a financial motive, that it was cheaper to kill him. Common sense judgment. Dedication to these principles. To these principles and our Constitution. Dedication to it. Uncompromised dedication to the presumption of innocence and reasonable doubt. Deliberate that way. Uphold your oath. Follow the law. Let this guide you. Enforce the reasonable doubt standard. Follow the law. Do these things.
Okay, dude. I get it.
And integrity will be yours.
They get it. They get
Thank
what
for
you
your
want
time
them to do.
over the last month. On
I
behalf
think
of
you're done.
Dr. Koenig and Manta Dirks, thank you all for your time.
What a doctor. What a doctor. What a doctor. So what does everybody think? Did your defense cause reasonable doubt? What are your thoughts? How long do you think they're going to deliberate for? Do you think they caused reasonable doubt? I'd love to hear. I don't think that they will, but We'll go back and look at some other stuff. It may not be tonight, but we'll go back. I'm just curious about how long we all think that it's going to take for this jury to come back. It could be a quick one, like it was with the woman one that I just watched. Why can't I think of her name? With Corey Richards. It could be really quick. It could be a very quick verdict. Oh, okay, so defense went first? Okay, I wasn't sure because I was away, so I didn't know if I missed it.
Mark Twain also said, if you tell the truth, you don't have to remember anything.
Very good.
Think back to defendant's testimony.
I like that a lot.
Think back to every time he was asked on cross-examination something that made him look bad, something that made him look like he had a motive, something that was incriminating. Think back to every single
Stuttering
time
every time.
the defendant was asked something like that.
A lot of deceptive
And what was his
things
answer?
of talking.
I don't recall. Ariel Koenig was able to sit here and testify in front of you for 3 reasons. First, she had her intuition. She saw the defendant looking at her feet on that trail. She saw the defendant tracking her every move. She saw the defendant making sure he saw where she was. And that's what made her feel uneasy. It was her intuition. Second,
Her intuition
She
saved
fought
her
back.
life. Her
she
intuition
fought for her life
saved
that day.
her life. I tell
And
you.
defense wanted to characterize it as a full conversation, but it was.
Yeah.
It was Ariel
She saved
begging
her
for
life.
her life from the defendant. It was
Absolutely.
Ariel saying, think about the kids. It was Ariel saying,
We've heard this
nobody's going to believe this
before.
was an accident. This is
has
Ariel
happened
trying to
before.
reason with somebody
Yep.
who is trying
Domestic
to kill.
violence. Mhm. Absolutely.
And the third reason, and the most important reason that Ariel was here to testify to you, is Amanda Morris and Sarah Buxbaum hearing a call for help,
Mm.
going forward, looking at what they saw,
Mhm.
and helping Ariel out. Because the evidence shows
Scary situation that was.
that is the
for them.
only thing that stopped the defendant that day.
I agree
The
with that.
only thing that stopped him from continuing to beat Ariel with that rock, from continuing to hit her, from continuing to try and kill her, was Amanda Morris and Sarah Buxbaum
Absolutely.
catching him in the act.
I totally agree. Can't really deny that.
Defense wants you to think about the life insurance. But you should think about it differently. This is a couple who's going through it in their marriage.
Yep.
Why is it time to renew life insurance? Does that make any sense? No. What the life insurance is, what many of defendant's actions are, is the defendant covering his tracks. The cover-up proves the crime.
Mm.
Defendant had control of the scene when he was done, so he took the evidence with him. He didn't need to take the rock. In fact, he knew that he was seen with the rock. He knew that Amanda and Sarah
He took the
saw
rock.
him with the rock.
Oh,
Why take it?
absolutely.
And what reason would Ariel have to make up the syringe?
Yeah,
None.
exactly.
Think about what Ariel knew. Ariel knew that he had tried to push her. Ariel knew they were right next to a cliff.
Yep.
Ariel knew that people walked up as she was being beaten with that rock.
Yep.
She had enough already. There's no reason to make up the syringe. Defendant's attorney said something. These are the facts you just can't make up. And that's what the syringe is in this case. It's a fact you just can't make up.
It's true. I agree. Why would you just exactly like even the color? Like that's not conducive with detail that you're not just gonna make up. There's a purple syringe. Well, why you
Let's talk about the confession.
Oh, blue. It was blue.
Emil told you he has no doubt about what the defendant told him. If this was truly a goodbye phone call, if this was truly the defendant telling his son that he was going to commit suicide, what purpose at all would there be to accuse Ariel of having an affair? What purpose does that serve in saying goodbye?
Mhm.
That makes no sense. It's just trying to
Just
throw dirt on
disrespecting her
Ariel.
one more.
That's all it is. It's trying to throw dirt on her. It's trying to make her look bad.
That's
It's trying to
inconsistent.
justify his actions
Yeah.
because he knew from the minute he did it, and he knew from the minute he planned it,
Yeah.
that it was wrong.
Yep. Absolutely. You got it, dude. I agree.
And then look at that timeline again. Why? It makes no sense. The defendant was simply trying to say goodbye. It was simply a miscommunication between himself and Emil. If it was a miscommunication, why wasn't it cleared up?
Yep.
Why wouldn't he just tell Emil in that second phone call?
Exactly.
Why would in neither of the FaceTime calls the defendant say anything about self-defense?
Exactly.
Why wouldn't the defendant say anything about Ariel supposedly attacking him?
Exactly.
Because in that moment, he was confessing. In that moment, he had a guilty conscience.
That's right.
And that's why he did what he did. That's why he hid. That's why he tried to run from the police.
Yep. Makes sense.
Think about the
Makes
list of
sense.
people that would have to participate in this, what essentially is being alleged as a massive conspiracy to believe what defendant's saying. You have to disbelieve Ariel. You have to disbelieve Emil. You have to disbelieve Amanda. You have to disbelieve Sarah. You have to disbelieve
That's good. What are you saying right there?
the medical evidence. You have to disbelieve the doctor that the defense hired.
Oh.
And you have to disbelieve what you saw with your own eyes. That's why the defense asked you to close your eyes when they played that video. They wanted you to ignore what you see. That's what this case is about. That's what they're asking you to do.
Wow. That's powerful.
Open your eyes. Make a decision based only on the evidence.
This is
And
what
the
he just
decision
said.
is
You have to
clear.
disbelieve
The
Amanda.
defendant tried
You
to
have to
kill her.
disbelieve Sarah,
The defendant
Emil,
tried
and the
3
expert
different
that was
ways.
on the defensive side, I guess.
And he learned out multiple times that day. It is harder to kill than you may imagine.
Mm-hmm. Wow, that was a good point right there.
You were told earlier about the defendant's constitutional rights and the founding of this country and how important that is. What are those 3 phrases that this country was founded on? You've probably heard them before. Life, liberty, the pursuit of happiness. And in this case, the defendant, beyond a reasonable doubt, made a conscious choice to try and take Ariel's life. He made a conscious choice to kill her. And that is why the only verdict that is supported by the evidence is that the defendant is guilty as charged. Thank you.
Succinct, factual, non-emotional, just facts, 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 facts. Much more powerful than the defense, in my opinion. It's just the facts. Facts speak for themselves. All right, here we go. I'm going to turn it up a little. I can't see him. Hear him.
Is there anybody here who feels for any reason they cannot participate in deliberations in this case? I see no hands. So that means Mr. Kiyama, Ms. Kishi, Ms. Pang, and Ms. Yan, I'm able to let you go, but you're not quite yet done. If one of the other jurors cannot complete deliberations, you may get a call to come back and participate in deliberations. Okay. So even though you get to go back to your regular lives and you're not sitting here in the courtroom, those 3 rules still apply. Don't talk to anybody about this case. Keep an open mind. Do not try to learn about this case outside.
What do you think? Are you convinced? Who's convinced you more? I will be checking in to see deliberations, whether we come back with a verdict tonight. I'll pop back on. My sense is that the jury will be quick. Feel free to subscribe and like. I'd love for your subscription. I'm trying to get to 500. I really enjoy doing these videos. It helps my family out too, an extra source of income. I'm not making anything off of YouTube, but I would love to be able to do things that I'm passionate about, and just even if it's something small, it would be very helpful to me. But I'm really curious to hear what you think about this trial. I want to hear from you. As long as you're respectful in the comments, welcome. And I hope you have a good night. And I'll keep playing it a little bit more here, and then I'll be back if there's a verdict tonight.
Of the courtroom until one of two things happens. Number one, you get a call to come back, or number two, you get a call letting you know that deliberations are complete and the case is done. So unless or until you get one of those two calls, those three rules apply. Don't watch any media,